Your life journey doesn't stand still, and neither should your wealth. Welcome to Wealth on the Move, the podcast. All right, welcome back to Wealth on the Move, the podcast. My name is Will Hoffman, and I'm your host.
And I am Brynn Tarbuck, your co-host. Welcome back to episode 2.
Yes, and we have something to talk about today that it's in 22 years we've seen a lot of mistakes that folks have made, a lot of things that we've tried to help them avoid or clean up afterwards, and it's something that I want to talk about, especially for our younger and growing listeners, folks that are starting to generate more wealth, starting to accumulate more wealth, starting to get promotions and pay raises and things, because this is something that I want to make sure that they hear and are thinking about as they are moving throughout their wealth and moving throughout their lives, and that is lifestyle creep. And it's a bizarre phrase. It's hard. It's weird to say, but lifestyle creep is it's as your income moves up, so does your spending, and I want to make sure that I'm very clear right away. This is not a strict don't ever enjoy your money. Young folks stop getting lattes and avocado toast, lesson. This is something to be aware of and to think about as you are starting to earn more and save more and accumulate more.
Right. And like Will said, he's for the past 22 years, he said, we've seen and he's seen. And I am now getting to learn those mistakes that he's seen over the past 22 years. And I kind of fall into that category that he was just talking about, the younger people that are just now starting to, accumulate wealth, maybe just getting a first position. And one of the first things I said to him was, so I have to stop spending my money.
Right.
But that wasn't the case. So he explained it to me, but and I think people listening too, when you first hear it, it is a bizarre phrase. But my other question was, how do I not get there? How do I avoid getting into that lifestyle creep?
Right. And lifestyle creep is it's kind of seductive. It appears when you least expect it, and you get that first bonus or you get that first pay raise or a promotion, and all of a sudden we start buying nicer things. We start and when I say nicer, I don't like quotey fingers, but we buy what we perceive to be nicer things. We start to buy a more expensive car, look for more expensive or bigger housing.
We think it's going to make us feel better.
Right. And our experiences want to change. We start to think about flying first class, or we start to stay in the nicer hotels. And that's all well and good. Like I said at the beginning, this is not a judgment on how folks should spend their money. But what ultimately ends up happening is our savings and our investing doesn't keep up with our lifestyle, because we want our lifestyle to keep up with our spending. So we, the other misconception, and maybe social media contributes to this. I know that reality TV contributes to this. We all think the Real Housewives of whatever city they're filming in is reality TV. And we think that buying expensive things is normal behavior for the affluent, and that hyper spending becomes the reward for what we're doing. And again, that can be the reward. That can be, but we want to make sure that we're also increasing our savings. And near the end, we're going to go over some tips and things, but there are, because you want to maintain this lifestyle when it's time to not work, when it is time to retire.
Right.
And the only way to do that is to make sure we're increasing our savings along with our increased pay and increased salaries and increased, roles as we start to move into C-suite type jobs and to, receiving RSUs and stock options and things. We just want to make sure that we're also, making sure our discipline matches our pay raise as well.
Almost balancing it out, treating
Right.
yourself when and in the right ways, but also saving for times of need that you might not see coming.
And how this also can happen is two things really that I want to touch on. One is we don't have a plan. And our plan doesn't revolve around what our values for wealth are. And maybe your values for wealth are to have nice things. And that's what money's there for. It's utility for me to have the nicest, the best, the fastest, the biggest, whatever. But we want to make sure that our plan revolves around our values. And if our values are for financial independence, staying dependent on those things is not going to get you to financial independence. And the other thing is, and we have to be very careful about who we trust. And there's been so many stories about celebrities and entertainers and athletes that have earned and spent and lost and are now bankrupt. I know MC Hammer sticks out as one. Brynn, MC Hammer was a rapper back in the 90s. I don't know if I need to tell you that or not.
Thank you. The name sounded familiar, but if you asked me what he did.
When I think there was even an ESPN 30 by 30 about athletes that are now broke and bankrupt because, their lifestyle crept up with their earnings. And you want to talk about hyper earning and hyper spending, that's the level at which that happened. But when I say we trust the wrong people, us regular folks, we will think that a banker or a real estate agent is looking out for our financial well-being, and they're not. They're looking to write a mortgage. They're looking to sell a house. And if they can get you into that house, they would. Does that mean you should be buying that house? A car salesman does not have your financial well-being in mind. Their job is to sell you a car. And that responsibility all falls on you. And making sure that you're staying within your means, because what we also don't want to have happen is not only are you creeping up with your spending, or your spending is creeping up with your salary, but we also want to avoid the debt that couldn't creep in there, and making sure that, okay, when a catastrophe happens, when some sort of financial setback occurs, to try to maintain that lifestyle, now we incur debt, and that debt can be very, very expensive.
So it's interesting. You said when you tied it into the values, and you said the athletes. Do you think in that scenario, and have you seen that the dollar sign, or that the money kind of overtakes those values at some point in life once they are spending a certain amount or making a certain amount, maybe?
It can. It's again, I said the word seduction. It's very, easy to be seduced by money and the desire for money. Listen, we've built a career and a business around it, right? So we understand the power that money does elicit over our lives. And maybe we don't want that power. Maybe we don't want that stronghold of money to have over our lives. And if you don't, the one way to make sure that we're not having that money have that intimidation or that power over us is to make sure that lifestyle creep is staying within your control, or within balance, I guess is the right word.
Right. Because values, for me, come first, and it's not something I would want to lose as a lifestyle creep. So that kind of seems like it could be an effect of the lifestyle creep, is losing those values that are important to you. But what else or effects, or what else do you see come from these creeps?
The first thing is a lack of financial independence, and being able to leave a job that you are not happy in, being able to get or and I hate to focus on the negative, missing out on being able to invest in an opportunity. If you've always wanted to start a business, it's very tough to do. If you've always wanted to change jobs, if those things become very, very difficult when that lifestyle or that, or even worse, that debt has a stronghold on the decisions you have to make.
Yeah.
We think deeper into that about kids, and when it comes time for college, and maybe the Ivy Leagues come knocking for your child to go to school there, and you want to help, and that lack of financial independence maybe prevents that. There's a lot of things that can have a stronghold, or that can happen with that financial independence is missing. And even worse is, I can't remember who the golfer was. His father owned a pawn shop.
Okay.
And he was being interviewed one time, and he said, my dad used to say to my brother and I, when we worked at our pawn shop, we were only one bad decision away from being on the other side of this counter and having to sell
I love that.
something
Yep.
in an emergency for less than we should get. Because pawn shops aren't what Pawn Stars show on television with, high, big ticket items. They are also places where folks that are in a financial emergency go to, help relieve the stress of that. So
Yeah.
I thought that was a very important message. And, the lack of discipline or lack of financial independence just puts us closer to a potential financial catastrophe, whether, whether it's an accident, whether it's an illness or a sickness, or it is a job loss. Unfortunately, some of those things come without our control. So, we don't want to focus on the negative. We don't want to dwell on the negative, but preparing for the negative is part of what we do every day for our clients. It's part of what our responsibility is for our clients, is
Yeah.
to make sure that, if that unthinkable occurs, we're not, that you're not one step away from a major financial catastrophe.
Right. Right. So you don't want to be all negative. So then let's change the narrative on that the lifestyle creep means don't spend your money, save it all, don't ever treat yourself type of thing. Does it mean that you have to absolutely save every dime?
No, of course not. I don't think that, a frugal and boring life is the answer. I think that, the first thing from a technical bit of advice is to PYF, pay yourself first.
PYF, pay yourself first. Okay.
So what I mean by that is, you should know what your savings rate is as much as you know what your tax rate is, and what your interest rates are, and what your rate of return is. The rate, or the percentage of your income that you're saving, is something to monitor and understand, and to have a pretty good idea on. And make sure that moves up in lockstep with your salary as well as your savings, so that it becomes,
Interesting.
it's not, you don't even think about it. You just know,
Right.
okay, I just got a 10% pay raise. I know that I want to make sure my savings matches that. So I'm saving 10% more. And how you're saving that, that's, future conversations for future episodes onto, how to save, what accounts to use, or what. But making sure that you are paying yourself first, because your ability to earn income is your biggest asset. As much as we think is it's our house or our car or our 401k or our stock portfolio, your ability to earn an income is the biggest asset that you have. And paying yourself first should be the reward for that.
Right. We work hard, and we want to enjoy the money
Yes.
we make, as well as keep the lights on and feed mouths. But
yes,
it's also important to have fun and enjoy your wealth.
and understanding that, because your ability to earn is your biggest asset, protecting that is important. So something else to think about is, and this is not fun things to talk about, but making sure that your insurance is up to date and moving in lockstep as well. And that's
Okay.
easy to do. When you buy a new home, you go through the insurance process, and you should be covered. When you buy a new car, you go through the insurance process as well, and it's covered. But making sure things like your disability insurance and your life insurance and your health insurance are also moving in lockstep there is important. And that's something that we often forget because, listen, we're all one illness away from losing our jobs from a disability. We're all one accident away from making, not being able to work for an extended period of time. And again, depending on your hobbies, if you're a skier, if you are a, adrenaline seeker, making sure that stuff is moves in lockstep is also important. And we don't often think about that. We view insurance professionals as, being sales oriented, but making sure that those things move in lockstep with you are very, very, very important. And you can have those conversations with your benefits folks at your job. The right insurance people and the right financial advisors will be having those conversations with you as well.
Be prepared. No one wants any of those things to happen, but being prepared is always one step ahead.
Again, and making sure that you're not making a bad situation worse when there is an accident or an illness, and then, oh shoot, now I have to worry about the money too.
Right.
That can just compound negative situations.
Have a plan and make the hard time a little easier.
Right. Another thing to make sure that you are doing, and this is going to kind of tee up our next and our first guest, which ironically will be our first guest on this episode is going to be our last guest from the Monetary Mixtape, is making financial decisions with your values in mind. And that's that's not a making sure that you're donating to the right charity or however, but how do you value money? How do you value your financial decisions? How do you, what values do you impose on your own life? And if that value is independence, making sure you're keeping that at the center point of financial decisions. Financial independence does not come with your heads turning when you drive by in a nice car. It comes with that value staying in the center of the financial decisions you make with your saving, with your investing, all of those things. If you do value nice things, and that's okay. This discussion is by no means a criticism on not buying nice things, but making sure that those values stay in the center of your financial decision making. I'm by no means as strict as a budget person and say no debt, no debt, no debt. There's okay debt. College loans are great debt. They can be expensive. Schools can be expensive. Again, another conversation for another episode. But investing in your education is not a bad place to incur debt. Home is not bad debt. Cars,
right,
while they depreciate versus the other two appreciate, still is not devastatingly bad debt. Credit card debt for lifestyle decisions, unfortunately, can get very, very expensive. Credit card debt in an emergency, especially when you're young and still building up that emergency account, may be a necessity. But then having a plan for paying off that debt becomes very, very important.
Right.
In our next episode, Michelle's going to talk to us about how to be mindful of what our values are and keeping them in the center point of, more than money decisions. But she's going to have a great conversation with us about that.
I'm looking forward to that. Michelle's great. And how cool is it to
I was
have
a guest
her
on
as
her
the
podcast.
Last guest, and then the first one on
I was a guest
on
our
her
show
relaunch
too, and her and I became great friends with the Gen X podcasting and influencing stuff. So she's a great asset for us to have on here, and just a great friend to have.
Well, I guess you will just all have to stay tuned then.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if someone watching or someone listening has thought, well, maybe I have spent some time, falling into this lifestyle creep, or maybe over the years I've spent money on things that I necessarily didn't need to and should have been putting into a savings. What would you tell these people? What can they do now?
You know, you don't have to go start lining up at the pawn store to at the pawn shop to start selling assets. I want to make
Cleaning
sure
out your
that
couch
we're
cushions.
right. I don't want. I want to make sure that we're abundantly clear too. But just like any problem, just like anything that you want to reverse, whether it's your health or fitness or any other bad habits, smoking or whatever. The first step in that solution is to acknowledge that it's an issue and stop.
And sometimes the
And
hardest step.
yes, it can be, and it is.
Yeah.
Is acknowledging, okay, I'm overspending. Okay, I'm buying things I don't need. I need to put an end to this first. The next thing to do is get a financial plan done. Have a cash flow analysis. That's a very, very important part, probably the most important part of a financial plan. As you're moving through life is analyzing your cash flow, because maybe you don't have a problem. That's also the solution is, maybe the problem is somewhere else. Maybe we're withholding too much in taxes. Maybe whatever the solution can be. But having that plan and that cash flow analysis done, and then put a plan in place moving forward is maybe you just allocate a certain percentage to buy something luxurious later, or there's a much more diligent plan put in place to buy the home of your dreams or the car of your dreams. Because listen, money's not meant to be a a weight or a burden. It is meant to enjoy. And
yeah.
Money does one thing and one thing only. And I want to make sure that I'm clear about this now, and I'll be clear about this on every episode I record. Money is meant to give us options. That's it. The more money you have, the more money you save, the more options that you do have. And that's where financial independence really lies, is having the options to buy the house of your dreams, buy the car of your dreams, load up on fancy jewelry and purses and experiences. But it also is the ability to send your kid to the school that they want to or that's best for them, to vacation and travel and do the things that you want to do. Just a bit of an insight into my my desires to travel and have experiences with my kids. And that is at the center point right now of how we save and what we allocate to. But first is education and retirement. And then whatever's left, we say, okay, where are we going next? What are we going to do next? How are we going to travel and get these kids the experiences that that we think that they would enjoy?
Right, but that's because you have that plan and you know that this is getting set aside. And so when the day comes that your first one goes to college or you're retiring, it's not, oh, now what? Because I haven't prepared for this.
Right.
It's I have prepared and I'm ready.
And I think anything else, small rewards along the way are important. And again, if it's a luxury meal or a trip or a piece of jewelry, I've always done that. Reward for myself, for our family along the way, that just kind of also rewards those values. And the trip that okay, there's extra. How do we do this? Okay, some goes here. Hey, guess what? We can take another trip if we want to. Or I really enjoy good food. Who enjoys bad food, right? But making sure we reward those things. Part of our biggest thing is my kids' palates have moved very quickly beyond chicken tenders and macaroni and cheese.
Yes, they have. Yes, they have.
So
they have more of a palate experience than I have, that's for sure. Leon
Yeah,
comes in
and
here and
now
tells me
we're
everything he ate, clam trout or lobster bisque or something. I'm like,
lobster,
where are
right?
you finding
And
these?
I don't know how they started to like oysters and sushi because that was that was a little strange one to hear, but yeah, their
But
palates are
that's okay.
so, making
It's
sure they're
important because
rewarded
they get
along
to
the way
learn
is
this
yeah.
now
And
too, you know?
understanding making another thing is making sure they understand that listen, this isn't just because we've
Right.
planned, we've saved, we've earned, and this is because mom and dad are busting their hump to
Yep.
work hard to create these things, and you have to do that as well.
Right, right.
um
This isn't an everyday thing. And yeah, don't worry, they're not eating oysters every night at the dinner table.
no.
But
But understanding that there are um small rewards along the way, but that financial plan and that cash flow analysis are very, very important so that you keep those goals in mind, and making sure that that lifestyle creep doesn't set you backwards, but becomes intentional, I guess is the best thing to say. And as I earn, as I save, as I progress through my career, I'm it's kind of like responsible fun. I don't know, maybe that's
yeah, no,
an
yeah,
oxymoron.
absolutely. And correct me if I'm wrong, but it almost sounds like too that it's not there's ever not a point in life where it's too late to start that. If you feel like,
No.
you don't have to be just starting your first job and just now, you know, earning money to have to sit down and make a plan like that. If you might be on your second or third job and then realize, I need to do this now so that when I do retire, I am ready.
Well,
Right? I mean,
and really where we see the mistake frequently occur is also the immediate beginning stages of retiring, and that those
ah,
first distribution phases, because well, for two things. One, you're looking at that large lump sum of money and thinking, okay, there's enough there.
right.
I can splurge. Or two, you say, listen, I just worked my tail off for 40 years,
Yep.
and I'm going to go where I want in first class, see the world, um, you know, buy the house that I've always wanted, buy the car that I've always wanted, because, one of the biggest things that we don't know when it comes to that retirement income conversation is how long do we need this money to last?
Yeah.
We don't know that answer.
Right.
We want to
Right.
try to plan for as long of a retirement as possible, but we don't know how long we need that money to last. So, um, the thought process is, hey, I could not wake up tomorrow. I'm going to make sure the last check that I write bounces, and I'm going to go buy the car that I've always wanted. Um, what's important is making that part of your plan when you're in your 50s that says, listen, when I retire, I want to buy the McLaren. So
Yeah.
I'm going to buy that car. How do we make sure that that money's not that money's allocated, that I'm saving, and that I'm not eating beans out of a can when I'm 95 years old because I bought that McLaren the day after my retirement.
Right. Or you only planned because you only thought you'd live to 90 and here you are and
Right.
you didn't prepare to live for 5 more years. I feel like
We're
we've
getting
talked about
healthier,
that
I hope.
before too. Is the $1,000,000 question is, how long will you live? Is we
Right.
just don't know. So plan
And
for the long run.
medicine's helping. We're getting healthier. We know
Yeah,
a lot more about our diets and about exercise and about how we take care of our bodies. Um, so we have to be wise about that and know that we may have a longer retirement than we did a career.
absolutely.
Which would be lovely. I would, I would love
Yeah.
to
I don't think
retire
anyone would be
longer
complaining
than.
about that, right?
Right.
And if you don't get yourself into this lifestyle creep, you can enjoy your retirement
Sure.
hopefully a little bit more too. Enjoy the wealth
Yes.
that you worked all those years for. Well, thank you for explaining that a little bit to everyone so that lifestyle creep
Sure.
isn't just a bizarre term out in the world. I think it's very important no matter what stage of life you're in because no one knows what tomorrow brings. We're not promised tomorrow. And you got to be prepared for anything. So having that plan is essential and really key. And I'm really looking forward to you carrying this over with Michelle and talking a little bit more about the values too, because that is
that's always a great conversation. It's she's been and we've never met in person, which is kind of I guess neat, interesting, fun. I would love to meet her in person, but she just always a great conversation. She's a great friend, great resource. Make sure you check out her Gen X Shift podcast. She is tremendous in helping us through a lot of life transitions, and I'm glad our paths cross and can't wait to record the next episode.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for tuning in today, guys, whether you watched or listened, and make sure you are staying tuned and following us for our future episodes.
Yeah. And some resources for you. One, there's 3 great books by Dr. Thomas Stanley. One I read in college. It was The Millionaire Next Door, and how the affluent really live versus how we perceive that they live. And that was, when I read that, there was no reality TV other than The Real World on MTV. So we weren't seeing or being kind of duped into thinking that everybody outside of where I live lives this way.
Social media too, I think.
I guess a sequel to that book called The Next Millionaire Next Door. And then another book called Stop Acting Rich. So that was those are 3 books that are worth picking up and checking out or listening to, however you like to absorb that content. Another resource that we have that'll be in the show notes is something called the Great Spending Balance. Yes. Which is just a way to do exactly what we said. And make sure that you are still enjoying your money, enjoying your successes in your career, but doing so in a smart way to make sure that you're not foregoing the next step, which is retirement or education savings for kids, or you're not foregoing your financial independence, at least early on in your careers.
Absolutely, and it's it's a short read, but it's very informative. It has good examples of almost like an A and B scenario, and what is the more financially responsible decision, I guess we should say. But
it just helps you keep everything in perspective, and just so you can decide why you're saving and what values your wealth is going to provide, and making sure that you're protected against any worst case scenarios or catastrophes.
Absolutely, and you never know, you might read that and think, I kind of find myself recently in one of these A or B scenarios, and could always reach out and could help you start a plan, or if you already have one, kind of work in some dreams or goals that you have into that plan. Because the bottom line is not getting lifestyle creep and having that spending balance with your wealth.
Yep. If you have any questions about anything we talked about, or any desire to maybe consider a financial plan or cash flow analysis, please reach out to us. You can always find us on our website, hoffmanwealth.com. We are very active on LinkedIn. I'm on there as Will Hoffman, AIF, which stands for Accredited Investment Fiduciary, which is something we'll talk about as we progress. But we're very, very active on LinkedIn and our Hoffman Wealth Management LinkedIn page. Facebook is Hoffman Wealth Management. So please reach out to us. If you do want to have a conversation or hear anything you'd like to hear more about.
Absolutely. And like always, stay tuned. We will be back with more Wealth on the Move. Until next time, keep your wealth moving.
The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Hoffman Wealth Management. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service providers with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning.